Today, we'll meet Micheal Sisti, entrepreneur, marketing guru, and award-winning novelist. If you enjoy the show, please leave a comment and check out some of the other episodes on my YouTube channel. And now, today's episode of Allan Gorman's 15 Minutes of Fame, or TV show.
My 15 minutes of fame, I want it, my 15 minutes of fame.
I met Micheal Sisti back in the 1980s. He ran a small advertising agency, and I was a freelance creative guy at the time, and he gave me some work. We seemed to work well together, and now we've been friends for 40 plus years.
40 years.
Yeah. So, hi, Mike.
How are you, Alan? How you doing?
Okay. So you're a Brooklyn kid like me?
Yeah, I speak broken Brooklynese.
Yeah. Dems and those and these?
Yo, absolutely.
What neighborhood?
Flatbush.
Oh, really? Me too. Where?
I was on East 40th and Farragut Road.
Oh, I know exactly what that is.
Yeah.
For a time, I had well, that's another story. But for a time, I lived on Albany and 40th. Albany and East 40th. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So, right next
We
to
were
you.
neighbors.
Right, but I grew up on Ocean Parkway in Ditmas.
Okay.
So what was your childhood like? Your siblings?
I had, at the time, I had a brother and a sister. And much later on, I had another brother after I had 3 kids of my own. If you remember, there was a block-long swimming pool on Farragut Road. And I used to hang out at that pool every summer, and that got me into swimming. And I ended up swimming competitively for the Boy Scouts, and then later on swimming in high school for St. John's Prep.
And what did your mom and dad? What were they?
My mom was a housewife. My father was in the printing business, and I eventually got into the printing business, which I wasn't fulfilled with. I wasn't satisfied with. And from the printing business, I started designing the printing that I did and writing some copy, and eventually set up a little design studio, and from there an ad agency. And then one day you walked in my office and everything changed.
Yeah, right. The agency went out of business. I started working when I was 11. I used to, when I was in public school in 6th grade, I used to deliver orders for block drugs, not block grocery store.
Okay.
And they would give me a quarter or a sandwich.
I actually started a business at age 11, and that's part of what we'll talk about maybe later on.
Now, tell me about the business. What did you do?
I was selling illegal fireworks.
Oh, well, I was probably a customer. Actually, I was scared of fireworks.
It scared the hell out of me, because every time the doorbell rang, I thought it was the cops. But it gave me the entrepreneurial bug. I knew I wanted to be in business, and I think over the years, I had founded about 25 businesses and partnerships.
So you said fireworks,
Yeah.
printing, little design and
Advertising.
advertising.
I did some residential construction. I built some spec houses. Started a home renovation and resale business. I was buying distressed properties in Florida, renovating them and reselling them.
What was your favorite? What was your favorite business?
I think the marketing. In Florida, I did a lot of marketing consulting. It was kind of virgin territory down there. There were a couple of small agencies. They were really design studios.
Right.
And I had much better background than the people, so I ended up consulting for a chain of credit unions and lots of technology company, lots of business, lots of small businesses down there. And I think that was probably a lot of fun. That was probably the most fun I had with any of the businesses.
So how did you segue from getting into the marketing end of things? And, where you went from marketing consultant, marketing business, and then you kind of, well, I went the other way. I went from big business to small business, and I loved the small business because I couldn't stand the big business. You went from little business into big business, and then found out a little
But
bit.
you found out a couple of things happened. We ended up breaking up the partnership with the ad agency, and Sarah and I started a virtual marketing agency. And I got this huge account up in Rhode Island,
Right.
the Blue Cross account. And within 6 months, they were offering me a vice president position with the company. And I turned them down. I said, you can't afford to pay me. But during that period, Sarah had been diagnosed with breast cancer. And we talked about it. And she said, look, we're just a little 2-man operation. And if I get, a recurrence of the breast cancer, we may not be able to get health insurance. Maybe we should take the job with the health insurance company. And so, the company made me a pretty impressive offer. And certainly the cost of living in Rhode Island at the time was a lot less than the cost of living in New Jersey. So I could work with less income, but their long-term package was very impressive. So we decided, okay, let's take the safe trip. And we went to work. I went to work for Blue Cross. So that's how I learned about the difference between an entrepreneurial mindset and a corporate bureaucracy.
The experience at Blue Cross was quite an eye-opener for you.
It was.
And you eventually kind of got a little sticky, right?
It got very sticky. I mean, it was, I probably reached the height of my creative success, marketing success at Blue Cross.
So to clue you in, Mike writes a series of books centered around this character, Dave Powers, who is like a super marketing guy who takes on the ugliness and the greed and waste and corruption in business, and that's basically each book is an episode based on life experiences that kind of nothing like that. Well, we all have war stories, but nothing like the ones that happened to Dave. And
well, it was interesting. The first book, which started the whole thing, was actually it was almost an accident. When I left the company, I left this amazing staff behind. I mean, I decided I was going to pay a tribute to this staff, this marvelously creative staff. And so I was looking for little anecdotes to write about. And I was going to put together like a little booklet, a little short, maybe 24-page, 64-page booklet.
so it was for them.
For them. And
like,
produce copies and give them copies that they could show their friends. I mean, that's the kind of tribute. I thought they were that good. So I started trying to figure out where I'm going to, remember all this stuff. And as it turned out, after I left the company, I was given a consulting contract. But while I was doing the consulting, I had a company laptop. And so they just, I called in one day to say, listen, I'll be up to Rhode Island next Tuesday and we'll work on this other program. And the guy I was reporting to said, oh, don't come up next week. We're too busy and we may not do that program anyway. And that was the last time I ever, even approached them to go back to Blue Cross. So I have this laptop and it turns out all my emails are still on the mainframe. So I start downloading emails to write this little booklet. And while I'm doing that, I get a call from an investigative journalist at the Providence Journal. And she starts asking me about this contract that I signed with one of the state senators. And this was on Friday after Thanksgiving when I get this phone call. And I said, look, I have house guests. I can't talk to you right now. Can we talk on Monday? And I can give you whatever information you want. I called some people at the company on Monday. Nobody would take my call. And then they published this expose on what happened with this contract. And apparently it became a big political, expose. And the state senator got indicted. And that's when I realized there was a real story here. So I followed the story and I wrote a fictionalization of the events. And that's how the first book came out. And then I continued to do other things.
And in the second book, Executive Crumple Zone, that kind of goes into that.
The Crumple Zone goes into that.
Based loosely on that.
Yes.
Events,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
And then the following book, Executive Roadkill, went into another scandal that took place with another legislator. And again, I wrote a novel about that, again, loosely based on what I remembered from what happened on that. It was another legislator that had a contract with Blue Cross that I had signed.
Well, now you change the names to protect the guilty, right?
Yes. Yeah. The story is fiction.
Okay, the story is fiction, and so let's switch gears and go put on our fiction. Let's suspend reality.
Okay.
To make
Okay.
it. Okay, so it's Rhode Island HIP.
Insurance partners, health insurance partners.
Okay, so and then now what happens?
The legislator had a contract with Rhode Island Health Insurance Partners to produce certain material. And that material was promotional material being delivered to the pharmacies. And so
The little printed bags, right?
yeah, prescription bags.
Prescription bags with advertising on them.
Yeah. And it was based on the marketing budget. This was a tiny little item that gets lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
But over a period of years, it becomes over $500,000 in embezzled money. And the federal prosecutor got wind of that.
Because he never really produced bags, right?
They did not produce the bags. And so
No drugstore ever got a prescription bag. It was just a brilliant marketing idea that never happened.
That never happened.
Okay. Yeah.
So Dave Powers, signs this contract, and then the prosecutor starts his investigation. They're trying to figure out, well, who's Dave Powers? What's his connection to all of this, aside from signing this contract? And then in the investigation, they find out bags were never delivered, and all this money gets transacted. And so instead of being a star witness against the legislator, he now becomes a person of interest in this investigation.
So he thought he was going to be because he was a witness before against the legislator, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And now he's called back for a second time by the FBI?
He's invited up to be a grand jury witness. And so he's provided with an attorney, and the attorney happens to be the previous federal prosecutor who's now in private practice. His name is Rick Schindel. And so Rick is representing Dave, and now they meet with the New England's district FBI director, whose name is Ed Davidson, and the current federal prosecutor, Neil Cornell. And there's 2 days of intense interrogation, which is all written about in the book, questions and answers and lots of sweating. And then the following morning is the morning of the grand jury hearing when Dave Powers is going to testify. So that's when we pick up that reading. And I'll start with that. Rick and Dave were sitting on a bench in the hallway of the U.S. District Court building, reviewing Dave's responses to the last 2 days. Rick commented, "I went through all my notes and there is nothing I can see that is of any consequence in your upcoming testimony. Did you recall anything that could come back to bite you?" Well, Dave confirmed his finding. He had thought about everything he said over the last 2 days, and there wasn't anything that stood out. His only reservation was the answers about having met Steve Fisher. Steve Fisher was the partner of the legislator. But even then, Dave qualified his answers by saying he was not totally certain that they met, other than that first appointment. But he did not share that possible flaw in his testimony with Rick. Cornell and Davidson came into the courthouse with a third gentleman, acknowledged the two of them, and went directly into the prosecutor's anteroom. A few minutes later, the three of them came out, walked up to Rick and Dave, and asked them to follow. The 5 men entered a small conference room that was being used more as a storage space than a meeting room. In addition to the small table and 6 chairs, the room was cluttered with AV equipment and displays from previous hearings. They sat around the crowded table and Neil spoke. First, he introduced Albert Rebney, the Deputy Attorney General, saying, "Just so you understand, the Deputy Attorney General just flew in from Washington to oversee this portion of the grand jury testimony. This is a critically important case, and we want to be sure that this hearing proceeds without any inaccurate testimony. Mr. Powers, have you reviewed your answers to our questions, and do you wish to share any changes in the testimony you will give this morning?" "I did go over everything I said during the last 2 days, and there's nothing to change." "Mr. Powers," it was Regney addressing Dave, "I believe that Mr. Cornell has explained to you that you are in no danger of prosecution in this case. But if you are not truthful in that jury room, I have instructed him to prosecute you for perjury without leniency." Neil then spoke. "Look, Powers, you have been evasive and dishonest in our 2-day interviews. We have irrefutable evidence that you have been lying to us." With that, Dave jumped up out of his seat and shouted, "That's fucking bullshit." Before he could go say anything more, Rick grabbed him and sat him down, saying, "Don't say another word." At that point, the 3 men stood up and began walking out of the room. A visibly angry Cornell looked down at Dave and spit out, "You've got 5 minutes to decide if you're going to testify truthfully. And if you don't appear in that hearing, I will find a way to charge you in this case." When they left the room, Rick turned to Dave and said, "Now you have to tell me, what do you know that is in conflict with your testimony? They are not playing games here. This is that serious that they will charge you with something." "Rick, there is no reason for me to be dishonest with you. I don't know what they're looking for, but right now I am scared shitless. It must have something to do with Fisher. You wait here, I'll be right back." He then got up and left the room and went to the prosecutor's office and used his relationship with Cornell to try and resolve the matter. The 25 minutes that it took Rick to discuss the issue with Cornell seemed like a lifetime to Dave, sitting alone in that tiny, claustrophobic conference room. He got up and began to pace alongside the table. But when he looked up at one of the dust-covered TV monitors, his growing paranoia convinced him that it contained a surveillance camera, and they were watching him. He quickly sat down and assumed a posture of confidence while he sweated internally. His fear was exacerbated by the fact that he had no control of what was about to happen to him. He could not think of what he could truthfully change in his testimony to satisfy Cornell. And that's the end of the reading.
So just so to clarify, he had testified before to a grand jury or some law enforcement, and was treated with respect and deference, and that was to indict the state senator, or
Yes.
so he was expecting this was just going to be more of the same, but now he's on a hot seat.
Yes, there was a discrepancy in what the one person who became the star witness, what that person had already testified to, with what I was about to testify to. There was a discrepancy in there that I was not aware of. Fortunately, Rick Shendell, who the former prosecutor, went into the anteroom and spoke with the current prosecutor and found out what the discrepancy was, so that I could tell my testimony without telling a lie once I understood where my discrepancy was. And I spent an entire day, and then, Rick spent an entire day in the grand jury room testifying.
This involved the bogus printing of the prescription bags.
Yeah.
And Fisher was the supposed supplier of the bags. Is that what it was?
Yes, he was the partner that was, that would reach out periodically to say more bags were needed.
They suspected you were in cahoots with Fisher.
Yes.
But you weren't.
No.
It's fascinating how you went from a marketing guy to an author. And what I love is in the next book, which we'll talk about in a minute, they all seem to have executive something in the title, but this one's Executive Boneyard. The characters start to become much more colorful and much more very well developed, and interesting character studies. This one involves a turnaround specialist who is a psychopath, who I probably worked for at some point.
We've all worked for this guy.
Worked for that guy. The guy's a pig. But it's, it kind of reminds me of, I don't want to make this political thing, but somebody who was in charge of former administration.
I didn't use him as a model.
Well, it could have.
It could have. But
or it could use
a
Putin.
lot of people get like that when they get to a certain level in their
Power
career.
corrupts. Power corrupts. Yeah. But he was a bad guy before.
Yes.
He was dishonest from get-go, right? So.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and I didn't know you had it in you. So God bless you.
Well,
So set up Executive Boneyard.
Okay.
and
Executive Boneyard.
What's the book about?
Yeah, Executive Boneyard came several years after I wrote the other two.
Yeah.
So it is, and at that point when I published it last year, I was told this was by far my best work. Okay, the book is about, again, it's about Dave Powers. He now he's consulting for a company with a new invention, a water-saving invention. And he meets with the inventor and talks about how he's going to market this company, which has no money. And at some point, the CEO of the company, who knows nothing about running a business except that he has money, talks to Dave Powers and said, look, we want you to come into the company. and the company is struggling. It can't survive. And Dave's partner meets this attorney who has a history, who we don't, they didn't know. And so that's
Mr. Turnaround Specialist, right?
he's the turnaround specialist.
Yeah.
So,
Same
so
thing.
that's how the book, and there's a lot more action in that book, and I won't give away the spoilers, but it's quite a story.
No, but the way he's going to turn around the company is by make himself rich.
Yeah, he's going to turn around, put it in his pocket.
But he's going to turn around, put it in the toilet.
Yeah.
You have so the book opens. You got 2 readings, right?
Yeah.
So the first is how the book opens, right?
Yeah. This is in the very beginning.
This is the prologue.
Yeah. Let me read that. At 7:45 p.m., Harold Payne was alone, agitated, and pacing. He was aimlessly wandering throughout the nondescript warehouse production offices that were furnished with 20-year-old battered metal desks and decorated with days-old coffee cups, cluttered files, and overflowing ashtrays. Pride and caring left these premises a long time ago. Impatient by nature, Payne's anger was boiling over as he waited for the trucks due nearly 2 hours ago. Venting and cursing, he threw one of the half-filled coffee cups at the grimy schedule board on the back wall. Every minute was critical. If they didn't arrive soon, the massive cargo consignment would never get loaded in time. He was sweating profusely at the thought this delay might ripple through his entire plan and cause him to miss his meticulously crafted getaway. But then, hearing the hiss of the air brakes, he rushed to the loading dock and raised the 2 overhead doors. The first driver casually walked back from his cab and climbed onto the platform. In a spray of spittle, Payne shouted his frustration, screaming at him, "What the fuck happened to you? You should have been here 2 hours ago." "What can I tell you? Traffic was bad. You should have seen it. The rain must have caused 6 different accidents. I'm talking serious pileups." The casual response only angered him further. "Don't fucking bullshit me. If you thought there were whores here waiting for you, you would have been here early. So where's the fucking Pelican cases?" "Oh, I got them in the cab. I'll bring them right out." The driver of the second truck strolled up onto the platform and said, "You ready for us to begin with the loading?" His easygoing drawl only poured gasoline on the fire. Payne was now approaching heart attack territory. "I was fucking ready 2 hours ago. I even rented a second forklift so you could load 2 trucks at a time." He then told the drivers to take every pallet in the warehouse, which he estimated to be 4 trailer loads. Seeing the 2 Pelican cases dropped on the platform calmed Payne down. While the truckers loaded the pallets, he toted the 2 heavy-duty plastic packing boxes into the office. Grinning, he unlocked them, checked the contents, and counted out the bundles of large denomination bills. When he finished at $3 million, he sat back and relaxed. His plan was working just as he envisioned it. Besides these 2 cases of cash, he had already skimmed another $2 million from the company. This would set him up for life.
Payne changed his name, right?
Yeah, from that the prologue, he runs away to Brazil.
He meets a love interest in Brazil.
Yes.
And then he gets bored with Brazil and he marries her and they come back to the US.
Yes. And Brazil meets Payne's, he meets Dave Power's partner and comes into the office and sees an opportunity.
Right. And basically it's cost more to live in the States than it did in Brazil. So he's running out of cash and he's he needs to feed his lifestyle.
Exactly.
Right. So what fascinates me, I'm just gonna, before you read, I just I'm curious to know about your process, Mike. The characters are, pretty well developed, and it seems like you did a lot of research. And have you been to Sao Paulo?
No.
No. So
Here's the interesting part. Here's the research on Brazil. When I wrote this book, I had a neighbor, a dear friend, her and her husband. Her name is Salite, who's the character in the book.
Character book, right?
And when I decided to write this book, I went to her and I explained to her my concept for the book. And I said, you are the perfect model for this character. And would it be okay if I use your name and your likeness as the character in this book? And I explained to her some of the things that, I was going to talk about in the story. And I was concerned that, because, there's a couple of sex scenes in there and there's some other things. And I was concerned that she might be offended, but instead she was thrilled that she was going to be a character in the book. So she told me all about Sao Paulo. She was my research study. I also did some online research. And when I wrote the first draft of the book, she was surprised that I had found these pretty well-known restaurants in the area and all about Brazil. But she did make some suggestions and some suggestions about changing certain things. But that's how that character was developed.
So do you have a support team who critiques your work in progress, or?
Yeah, I started out with a small group of beta readers. And all of a sudden, as people found out about it, everybody wanted to be involved in the process. I now have a group that I call the Flash Mob. It's over 125 people now. And when I come up with an idea or I have to, do something and get some input, I put it out to this group. I send a monthly newsletter out. And I tell them what's going on in my world. And I may include a blog post in the newsletter or an anecdote. And then I explain what problem I'm working on and how they can help. And I get feedback on book titles, subtitles, back cover copy, things like that, characters, places. And so now this group is always looking forward to, the next venture and how they can be involved.
If people want to get the newsletter, how do they do that?
On my website, there's a link, and you just put your name and email address in. And I don't do anything with the emails except, talk to the group. I don't sell the emails or anything like that. And I've gotten people that I don't even know that have come across the website and signed up. It's mostly people that like to read, and the stories are usually pretty interesting, and the anecdotes are often things that are written in some of the humor books. In fact, I give away books when I run contests, and I'll ask people to give me your best advice on this, and whoever gives me the advice I accept, I'll send you a free book.
Are your books available on Goodreads and Amazon and?
Yes. Yeah, they're on both.
Okay. So let's get back to Executive Boneyard. So what happens is I'm giving stuff away, but slowly but surely, Gerard Morbus, is that his name now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does his best to marginalize everybody in the company, or kick him out of the company and take over everything and become in 100% control of everything, and basically cooks the books to steal money from the company as best he can. So now we're getting more to the climax of the book, right?
Yeah, we're getting toward the end, and so he's doing all what you've just explained, And of course, he's a womanizer, so he's having an affair with the office
He's a
manager.
horrible, horrible womanizer.
Oh, yes.
I'm surprised he didn't go to Bergdorf's and press somebody into the dressing room. Okay.
Yeah.
But I never did that. No. Okay. He's lying.
But his wife happens to be a very savvy woman, and she figures out what's going on.
Yeah.
So this read is about when she confronts the office manager. So I'll take your audience through that now.
Okay.
Salite continued to monitor Gerard's encounters with Amanda as she put her plan together. Her first step was to go to the bank and open a line of credit. She requested a loan using the house as collateral. Since there was no mortgage, the loan officer determined the line could easily go as high as $500,000. Seeing the large balances and activity in their checking account, the banker asked its purpose. She explained that she was opening a furniture and decor service where she needed to stock a warehouse with furnishings, artwork, and decorative accessories. They approved the loan the following day, although she was not ready to draw down the funds. Salite then drove to the office and marched in the front door, where she was greeted by Amanda. Mrs. Morbus, how are you today? Gerard is not here. He's still out of town and is not expected until next week. Anything I can do? Amanda, I know Geraldo is not at office, and I am aware also of what you and he do. Hiding her surprise, Amanda replied, I have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, you do. You having sex with him every time he come home. Screwing. Mrs. Morbus, that is a terrible thing to say. I am the office manager here and very professional. I don't fool around with married men. It was then that Salite noticed the Prada bag on the credenza behind Amanda's desk. How you afford handbags so expensive? Oh, my boyfriend bought it for me at a bazaar when he was in Europe. Drilling into her eyes, Salite hissed, your lies mean nothing. I know. I give you 1 week to leave this job. Go away and do not come back. This is only warning you will get. Salite turned on her heels and left. Amanda was so shaken she could barely breathe. How did she know? Had Gerard told him about them? Was he playing her? This was confusing. She decided she wouldn't tell him about this encounter until after he returned to the office. And then she would see how he treated her when they were alone.
And the book ends with quite a surprise for both Gerard and Amanda.
For everybody.
And for everybody. Well, Salita wasn't surprised. She did okay. Okay, well, thanks for the entertaining chat, Mike, and I wish you luck with the books. So you do you have social media presence? You on Facebook and
primarily Facebook and Instagram. I mean, I'm on Twitter and a few others. I'm on LinkedIn. Haven't done much with them lately, but I am planning to have a stronger presence as I republish these books and introduce the book number 1. Then I'm going to do much more marketing, and I'll be using social media for that.
Okay, so again, michealsisti.com, and check out Mike's stuff on, look for Executive Crumple Zone and Executive Boneyard on Amazon and Goodreads. And anything else we should hawk here?
No, if I sell a few books, I'd be thrilled.
How about some prescription bags with your name on them?
Yeah. I'm still waiting for the delivery.
Okay, yeah. All right. Well. Thanks, Mike, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, great talking to you, Al. We'll be in touch.
You too. Bye.
Okay.
I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. To learn more, find some of Micheal Sisti's books on Amazon. And check out some of the other episodes on Allan Gorman's 15 Minutes of Fame YouTube channel.